Guys, welcome to the show. Great to have you both.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, great to be with you.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin, my God, we go way back, but I guess it's the first time on this particular platform. So great to see you again. And Anna, I've been watching your evolution and your sort of speaking out about your ideas with great interest. It's been very interesting. I feel like in some ways I experienced something similar myself, where I was certainly more, I think, on the left 10 years ago than I am now, for sure. I would never have described myself as a liberal past like college, but I see what you're going through. And I think a lot of people can relate to where it's like, you just get so aggravated with shit breaking down that you believed in. You feel like you have no choice but to just start calling it out. So I guess that's a fine place to start. Do you want to explain to the audience who hasn't seen you on like Glenn Beck or elsewhere kind of where you are? Because most people know you as part of the Young Turks, which is a left leaning podcast. It's very successful, but it's certainly not center or center right.
Yes. So it is true. It's a left-wing show, and I still consider myself, for the most part, on the left. But, there's been this growing culture among the Democratic Party in particular, where there seems to be a lack of self-reflection, maybe even, kind of taking note or inventory of some of the policies that we've been championing or supporting, endorsing. Once some of those policies are implemented, there might be flaws, there might be some issues that policymakers didn't see coming into it. But once you see some of the negative ramifications of these policies, I mean, I used to be under the assumption, and this was, I guess, a terrible assumption to have because it's not true, that there would be a recalibration of some of these policies in order to actually serve the best interests of the American people.
Hello, welcome to the review. I'm going to pause it right there. So today's episode, we have Megyn Kelly and Anna Kasparian. And I got to tell you, man, Anna is turning into a conservative. She doesn't know it yet. But she's on her way. She's well on her way. I've said it in many videos before. The left never, ever thinks a policy through to its end result, ever. The policy Democrats put in place almost always make things worse. Government almost always makes things worse. And then the problem is, instead of when they start a program, the government starts a program and the program's crap or it's corrupt or it's wasteful, they never, ever shut the program down. What they do is they create another program and spend more money on the new program to correct the last program. And it just gets bigger and bigger and more expensive. And you can't, it gets hard to wield. It gets out of control. And the answer is always more money, more spending, more programs. And the bureaucracy just grows and grows, and it makes everything worse. And this is why conservatives believe in small government. And I don't know if Anna's reached that point yet where she sees the government is the problem. I don't know if she's gotten there yet. But she does. Watch the next part here. You're going to find out she thinks it's the solution, and she's dead wrong.
But what I've noticed, certainly on a local level, is that there's absolutely no self-reflection, no recalibration of said policies. And on a national level, there seems to be more interest in serving the egos and, the narcissism of Democratic leadership. And so the cover-up involving Joe Biden's mental decline really bothered me. The fact that he was pushed out of, running for re-election and then Kamala Harris was anointed really bothered me, especially when, the whole centerpiece of the Democratic campaign was protecting democracy. Well, Democratic voters didn't get a say in who their Democratic nominee would be. So there are all sorts of issues, and it doesn't mean that I've completely changed my political identity. If anything, I'm holding true to my political identity, and I feel that the Democrats do a lot of projection. They like to point fingers at the right for engaging in all sorts of nefarious behavior, but then they themselves engage in the same nefarious behavior. After Biden lost the election, on Pod Save America, you hear, after Harris lost the election, on Pod Save America, you have members of her campaign talking about what they've learned following the Democrats' loss. And what really bothered me is one of the things that they believe they did wrong was they didn't break campaign finance laws enough by having the campaign coordinate with the super PACs.
Right. The party of law and order. So the party, your party, and you know what? I think she's saying she still believes in her party, and I think that's more of a pride thing than it is an actual beliefs thing. She's a little bit too proud to say right now that she was wrong about what the sides really are. The difference is she was wrong about the difference between conservative beliefs and liberal beliefs. I really think she's going to find out, come to that conclusion at some point. But right now she's a little too proud. But it is amazing, the hypocrisy. The Democrats go out to them and the media say that the Republicans are going to destroy democracy, while they completely ignored democracy to put Kamala Harris, we'll just call her Harris, to put Harris in place, while telling the Republicans they're going to destroy democracy, or telling the voters that Republicans are destroying democracy. And then you have all the law and order. They're all about law and order. And then you have Biden with all his law and order, releasing murderers and stuff from prison. I mean, the hypocrisy is amazing too. But I truly believe Anna's going to find herself more conservative in the years to come.
That's against the law. They accused Trump of doing that without providing any evidence. And then they said, we need to stop listening to our lawyers and we need to do a little more of what the Trump campaign did. I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially the message. Yeah. That goes against my values and principles.
So interesting. I mean, I just feel like we've heard so much of that kind of messaging, especially from the left. The right had its big breakup when Trump was elected in 2016, and it was fierce and it was ugly. And now there's been a resettling, I think, as he's coming into office for the second time. And the left is having a lot of defectors, it seems to me, as of late. Maybe it's because they're looking at things a new way. Maybe it's because some of them are excited about this very interesting Trump coalition, or maybe some, like the Biden thing, I think really did hurt on the left more than people realize, like the lies. People knew. You can't look at him and tell me this is the best Joe Biden ever and then ask me to continue believing you.
Yeah, people found out, some of these conspiracy theories are actually true, like Biden being totally incapable of running the country, which conservatives and the right has been saying for 4 years. Look, I'm not going to sit here and defend Republicans because there's a lot of really bad Republicans out there. But the truth of the matter is the Democrats are way worse.
Kevin mentions, George Soros. There's a very long list of billionaires on both sides that make donations, but it's 2-1 Dems to Republicans. It's the Democrats definitely outweigh the Republicans when it comes to billionaire donors. It's to the point where you may remember this moment too, during the Kamala Harris campaign, she went on with Stephen Colbert and they had this moment.
There are quite a few billionaires who support you. You are from Northern California, after all, where they grow them in fields out there. Who's your favorite billionaire? Because we all have a favorite billionaire. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Oprah. I'm sorry. I claimed Oprah. You can't take her now.
Money in politics has corrupted both political parties. And for the Democrats to pretend as though they're totally innocent of this is ridiculous to me, especially considering what we experienced in the last election cycle. I mean, Kamala Harris raised far more money than the Trump campaign did. And in fact, she raised far more dark money than the Trump campaign did. And then she moved forward in essentially squandering all of that money. And I think this past election really shows the kind of grift that exists within our election cycles, because that money gets spent with all these consultants and all these various, PR groups, and the amount of money they charge for their services, which have proven to be a failure in this past election cycle for the Democrats, is absolutely outrageous. And so I feel like our elections have become more about, a business for various
let me
industries.
Ask you, what do you think he's talking about there? Do you think he's talking about money in politics, or do you think he's talking about Elon Musk? Like, I'm angry that Elon is the world's richest man and has joined BFF style with the sitting president And also Zuckerberg has bent the knee and Bezos has bent the knee. And therefore I see this as an emerging oligarchy. Like I feel like it was a complaint about Elon Musk and his outsized role in politics.
Yes. Yes, it was. Of course it was. They only want billionaires around their people, powerful people around the Democrats. They don't want to see powerful people helping Trump. That scares them to death. I can't say I blame him. Look what Elon has done, man. Look at all he's done. He got basically the largest social media, one of the largest social media sites in the world, apps in the world. Zuckerberg's got the other one. So they can't get misinformation, so-called misinformation, removed anymore. And that scares them to death. Nobody watches the mainstream, lamestream media. So now they can't propagandize the public anymore. And that worries them a lot. And Stephen Colbert is one of the reasons why the public doesn't watch the garbage anymore. Dancing around dressed as a syringe. What do you expect's going to happen?
That's how I read it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Anna, I read it as a sort of veiled criticism of the big three, so to speak. And the interesting thing on that, again, is the hypocrisy is so apparent just because all three, Musk, Bezos, and Zuckerberg, have a history of having supported Democrats and have a history of supporting left-leaning causes previously.
I'm just going to stop him right there real quick because that, I'm telling you right now, Zuckerberg's kind of like 50-50 for me on trust. Whether I trust him or he did this because he knew Trump was going to get in power and he wanted to kiss his ass. I kind of think he has moved right. But Bezos, I don't trust that dude at all. That dude is a freaking dirtbag. And I think we're going to find that he's way more to the left than anybody thinks. And just because he stopped the Washington Post from endorsing Kamala doesn't mean he switched sides. All it means is he saw the writing on the wall. He owns a giant corporation that he doesn't want to get regulated. So he's kissing Trump's ass.
This is like a very big sea change in terms of like who are the voices that matter. And you know what we do is we try to build a platform that gives people a voice. But I think that there's this wholesale generational shift in who are the people who are being listened to. And I think that that's like a very fascinating thing that is going on. Because I think that that's like what's going on here. It's not just the government and people saying, hey, we want like a very big change here. I think it's just like a wholesale shift in saying we just want different people who we actually trust,
right?
Who are actually going to like tell us the truth and not give us like the bullshit opinions that you're supposed to say, but like the type of stuff that I would actually like when I'm sitting in my living room with my friends, like the stuff that we know is true. Like who are the people who kind of have the courage to actually just say that stuff? I don't know. I think that whole like cultural elite class needs to get repopulated with people who people actually trust.
I've got to say, I have nothing against Mark Zuckerberg, but it's somewhat galling to listen to him. Hello. There are many of us in the country who have been saying that for decades now, and you've been stifling us. You know, I mean, especially conservatives. His platform has been stifling conservative speech from I'm sure, the very people he's referencing there as these breaths of fresh air. Oh, well, if only we could have heard from them earlier. Why didn't we? I have some thoughts, Mark. What do you make of it, Anna?
Yeah, but
my
quick thought on that though is declare victory. Do not criticize it. Like when you've won,
too late,
and you
you're saying be classy. That ship has sailed.
No,
go ahead, Anna.
It's not necessarily be classy. It's like, hey, you know, like you engaged the audience, you made your case publicly.
Just for the record, I ain't being classy either.
And now you've won, and I don't think it's time to sort of like, beat your chest on it, but it's like, take this as the opportunity for exactly what it is, which
it's
is
fine. No, I get what you're saying. He's welcome aboard the free speech train, but
right.
forgive me if I want to spend a few minutes you know, I don't want to say rubbing his nose in it, but like, hello, he was wrong. He was 100% wrong in what he did. And it was un-American. It was really un-American what he and the Biden administration were doing on the stifling of speech. And I would have liked Anna to have heard more of a mea culpa. I was really wrong and I'm really sorry. And I was 100% hashtag part of the problem before we get to the healing phase.
Yeah. Well, look, I find what he said there entirely dubious because he had pushed for the type of culture that we're currently dealing with right now, because everything that was incentivized on his platform was the extreme ends of the political spectrum. So he says, you know, people are really looking for the truth. Well, the people that were really promoted on your platform for a long time were individuals who were on the extreme left or the extreme right. Especially when it comes to some of the cultural issues. Anyone who wanted to be reasonable, who wanted to be fair, who wanted to, you know, go for evidence-based commentary was not really incentivized on that platform for a long, long time. And so I think that's part of the reason why you now have two political parties that have a difficult time speaking to each other. And I'm not talking about those in power. I'm talking about the actual voters. And what I'm trying to do through the work I'm putting out there at TYT is to get Democratic voters to understand that the voters on the other side of the aisle are not a monolith. They're not Nazis. They're not going to come for you. They're not going to imprison you. They're not going to, you know, bust into your home with guns and murder you. Like, all of the fear mongering that was promoted on these platforms is untrue. And the only way that we're going to save this country is if we open up lines of dialogue and speak to each other again and actually see each other as human beings who might have political disagreements, who might want to engage in hot debates, and that's totally fine. But you have to see the humanity in people first. And that has been disincentivized over the last, I would say, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It has been not only disincentivized, it's been attacked. If you were on one side of the aisle, you got attacked. I tried posting just little basic conservative things on Facebook many times, and they would all get either flagged or not one of my friends would see them. It was amazing. So it wasn't that, you know, all dialogue was being shut down, only one half of it. And now when your half hears it out of the president's mouth or out of MAGA's mouth, then it sounds unimaginable because they haven't heard it in 10 years. But everything else you said, Anna, I completely agree with.
It was amazing to hear some of those lies repeated at the Senate confirmation hearing of Pam Bondi yesterday, where they were trying to suggest that, you know, would you as Attorney General enforce an order, or maybe no, it was Hegseth, would you enforce an order to send the military in against President Trump's enemy from within? Like, okay, you've conflated so many different remarks that Trump made there. He did say enemy within. He did not say he would unleash the military on the enemy within, which is a political body or animal or opponent that he doesn't like. But what he said was, asked by Maria Bartiromo, was if things get crazy around the election and we have mass riots, would you bring in the military? And in that context, he said yes. Anyway, it's turned into like a Senate question that has to be asked of all the nominees, whether they'll do it. It's a lie. It is divisive. And it's probably one of the reasons that Anna's listeners, or some of them, think Trump might show up with, you know, a machete and a Marine to arrest them if they voted for Kamala, which is not what's going to happen.
I mean, yeah. And look, I would say that one of Trump's flaws is the fact that he says things that are extreme and irresponsible, and he hurts himself that way. Because I think that he does have some good instincts, and those good instincts get totally drowned out by some of the more irresponsible rhetoric he engages in. And of course, the Democratic Party is going to capitalize on that. They're going to exploit that for their own political purposes. And so I think Susie Wild has actually been a really good influence on Donald Trump. I think that she has managed to kind of keep him on the straight and narrow. And as a result of that, there's been a lot more focus on what he wants to do policy-wise as opposed to his rhetoric. So hopefully that continues. And I don't agree with everything he does, obviously. I don't agree with all of his policies, but at least we're having a conversation about policy.
You will. You'll agree with the policy eventually. It may take a few more years, but you will. But otherwise, again, I totally agree with Kasparian here. It hurts to say it a little bit, but yeah, Trump can say the wrong things at times, or he can say things that are easy to take out of context. But you know, it's all about the policy implementation, and he's implementing the policy, and it's beautiful from where I'm sitting. I think that's going to be it for this video, y'all. Thanks for watching. I'm out. Cheers.